Maybe start to tell you what I think we know about the virus. Clearly has been reported a lot of mutations, 32 mutations in the spike protein, the one that is important for the vaccine. Just to remind people, there were very few mutations on the spike for the beta or the delta viruses variant. And I think it was a big surprise to the scientific community. I don't believe many people would have predicted such a big jump in evolution in one variant. What we also know is that it's taking over Delta in South Africa very quickly. It took around 4 months for Delta to take over Beta. And it seems it's taking just a couple of weeks for this new variant to take over Delta. So that's something to keep in mind. We believe this virus is highly infectious. We need to get more data to confirm this, but it seems to be much more infectious than Delta, which of course is problematic. And we also believe that it's already present in most countries.
First of all, let me take a step up. I think Omicron is of concern for several reasons, right? But there are a lot of unknown things right now. And keep in mind that we have been preparing for something like that for months. Within weeks, I think we will know most of the information that needs to be known, but every day we learn more, then to protect and then to treat. To understand the virus, I think we need the key questions are the questions that we are discussing all day today. I mean, what is the clinical manifestation? Is it more severe? Is it less? Is it going to be spreading faster or not? The second is, are the vaccines going to protect against this new virus, given that has mutations in the spike, and this is where most of the vaccines are working. When it comes to the vaccine, it remains to be seen. I don't think that the result will be the vaccines don't protect. I think the results could be, which we don't know yet, that the vaccines protect less, which means that if the vaccines protect less, it is that if we need to create a new vaccine. Already we started Friday. Friday we made our first DNA template, which is the first part of the manufacturing of the development process of a new vaccine. And we have made multiple times clear that we will be able to have a vaccine in less than 100 days. In fact, we have already 2 vaccines built in less than 100 days. We built one for Delta that we didn't need to use because the current vaccine is very effective against Delta, and we built one for Beta, which also we didn't have to use. So we will build one at risk right now for Omicron that will be used only in case we need it, if we see that the current one doesn't work.
What is going on, CyberFam? Today we're going to do something we haven't done in a little bit. We're just going to talk quick macros. So every week I go through this thing where I just do some research and, see if I can change or adjust my investment strategy. And this is really all it is. So I'll try to give you as much as I can, in the first little bit before. I don't want to keep wasting your time. So if you don't want to stick around, that's okay. Just get the next part and you're out of here. Basically, let's talk about Omicron. Okay, Omicron seems like it's been crashing the market and it's going back up. It's just a lot of volatility. On top of that, there's a bunch of the CEOs for Pfizer, Moderna, all these vaccine people came on MSNBC, started talking to people about what they project is going to happen. Everyone is comparing to Delta, as some people are comparing it to the original strain. And really that's it. I mean, it's there's a lot of crazy stuff, and it seems like everybody's just waiting and itching for this thing to just topple over. So real quick, Omicron, to be honest with you, I think is not something that just came up overnight. It's definitely been around. I think it's just started to increase its virulence a little bit. At this stage right now, I think it's a little bit more virulent than Delta from what I can gather. But at the same time, it's not something that the vaccine people are too worried about. But of course, in the scientific community, they can't be 100% on anything. So they'll always tell you maybe, we're still having to look at it, of course, right? Because it's libel. So for sure, they're not going to just go and tell you, oh, yeah, we have something to, address this right now. Now, the problem everyone's freaking out about Omicron is that, and we'll go over this in this video, but the viral structure of the cell itself, the virus cell, right? There's a thing called the spike protein. It's a spike glycoprotein, actually. And this is the thing that where the mutations happen, and that's actually surprising them, I think, a little bit, because that's actually where they're targeting the vaccines to be affected. So basically, if the vaccine's affected, you still have COVID basically, but then the thing is, it doesn't actually affect you because it's not able to bind with your cells. But anyway, so we'll get into that. Also, everyone think the market's going to crash. And again, just waiting for an indicator to kick it off. Personally, I don't think it's Omicron. I think this is a great buying opportunity if you believe that the market's going to stabilize. If you believe it's going to go down, then you would wait. Me personally, I'd rather wait a little bit just to see what's happening, just because I have to do some other stuff with the money I have anyway. Combined with the fact that I don't think this one is strong enough to actually push the market down further. Now, before we kick it off, it's important to note that Jerome Powell is actually going to basically push this and say, look, this is exactly why we're not out of the weeds yet. We might need to not slow down quantitative easing. So just keep that in mind. That's really what the people are waiting for, right? Once QE stops or they start tapering, we're definitely going to start seeing multiple pressures downward. So I'm really waiting for that. I think it's really an inevitability. This kind of stuff is really it's like a head fake. Yeah, that's what we'll talk about this video, and really what I'm gonna do with it. To be honest, I'll just tell you right now, I'm not really gonna do much. I'm just gonna continue holding and seeing. It seems like everyone's waiting for some kind of big market correction. Omicron could very well be the thing that topples it, but I don't think so just yet, at least not from the stuff that we have been looking at. All right, so let's get into a little bit of detail. Okay, let's talk virology real quick, since I'm an armchair and amateur virologist or whatever. No, but in all seriousness, my background's in life sciences before I got into tech, so I'm no expert on this, but I think I have better general knowledge. Like I was a student that studied this kind of stuff. So anyway, so the idea is that a lot of these like viruses, guys, like they have these. If you actually take a look, if you actually Google like a coronavirus cell structure, you'll get this kind of stuff. But basically, the vaccines and everything are targeting. Like there's a few things in the virus. Okay, there's like the outer layer, which is called the envelope. Then there's the inner layer, which is like membranes and basically genetic material of the virus itself, which is what injects into your host cells when they bind with your host cells. The thing is, on top of the on the envelope, there's this thing called the spike glycoprotein, which is kind of like a key, right? It uses, or like it's kind of like a crowbar actually. It uses this thing to get into your cells effectively, like when it binds with your cells. Now, all the vaccines are actually targeting this specific thing, so it's gonna basically make the virus a little bit useless, and it can't bind with your cells. That's the whole idea of the vaccines targeting this particular part of the viral cell structure. But now that there's mutations happening on the spike glycoprotein, there's a possibility that the vaccines actually don't work, right? Because like the thing that they're supposed to work on is potentially changing. And when they mean mutation, it just means that there's a possibility that the structure and how that protein looks or whatever is not the same as what you thought. It's more along the context. So that could be a problem. The thing is, we don't really know, like the people that are getting sick, we don't have too much information, at least as far as I can gather. If they are older, younger, like whatever the cases are, they double vax, what kind of vaccines do they have? Do they have like Pfizer or whatever, or Moderna, or do they have something like some random Chinese brand or whatever, right? Who knows? We don't know. So that's what these guys are going on to MSNBC and saying. They're saying like, we need at least a few more weeks to find out what's happening for real. They have samples already, and they're already working on vaccines, and that's the thing, guys, right? So these guys don't wait for stuff to happen. Like as soon as something new comes up, they already start working on it. That's just generally how it works. And as the governments and whoever needs stuff, they order it from there and they mass produce. The mass production is what takes like whatever they say, like a month or something, right? But they already start working on this stuff from before, or as soon as they hear about it, at least, and they can get a sample. So it's not like they're just waiting for something to happen. So let's get that straight, right? These are like straight up companies that are pretty good and don't want to stay ahead of the stuff. It's pretty much life or death for them. Now, another thing to note is, it's not like the vaccine you took last time is only for Delta, right, or something. It's gonna affect a broad range, right? Some number of possibilities, really. So just keep that in mind. Like, even that's why they're saying we don't know, because it could very well be that once they investigate the mutation and see what the spike glycoprotein looks like for Omicron, it could very well be that the vaccines currently totally work fine. In some cases, maybe like the Pfizer one works fine and Moderna needs a booster, or vice versa. stuff like that. So that's why there's a little bit of a delay. So yeah, the Pfizer CEO guy said that he is fairly certain the vaccine has some effect, but he's not too sure, right? The Moderna CEOs, like, they need like 2 more weeks to even get, more information and see what's happening. And these guys will never tell you 100%, right? Because, I mean, scientifically, it's not possible really, or not probable. So they'll never tell you that. So don't get jaded by that. It's more so just like, that's how they are. I'll post a link to those interviews, guys, in the description below. So, if you guys want to look at those interviews yourselves, feel free to go do that. Okay, so now let's get back into this whole like stock market stuff. Now, what exactly is happening? Like now, I believe it's back up. When I first started looking at the stuff, it was pretty much down like, 5-6%. Some stocks are down more than that. The thing is, it's just a quick like head fake. I think it's just a reaction to people thinking, oh, new strain. The same thing happened with Delta. The same thing happened with Beta. It's just you don't realize it at that time because it was either already on the way down or already on the way up. So there was more of a trajectory. Right now, it's sort of at its all-time highs, and there's a sense of fear.
Especially when you get a sudden dip or the averages are oversold as they were. That's essentially what happened here with the Dow rebounding 237 points, the S&P jumping 1.32%, NASDAQ pole vaulting 1.88%, pretty much way back to where it was before Friday's sell-off. Now, granted, the Dow and the S&P didn't go all the way back, and it's almost inconceivable that a country as large as ours doesn't already have someone walking around with the Omicron variant, the one that looks to be more infectious, not necessarily dangerous, but infectious than Delta, although it may not be more deadly. I think there could be some more selling when we get a new victim in this country. And that's because our markets have a bad history of reacting poorly anytime someone gets hospitalized with a new variant in this country. So our optimism is obscured. We convince ourselves that we're invulnerable, then something reminds us that we're not, and stocks temporarily get slammed.
Now, to be honest, there's a lot of indicators in the market that point to like sort of like a correction coming up. One of them, probably the biggest one, I think at least, is inflation. The levels are crazy high. I don't look at any crazy indicators. I really just look at stuff around me, right? So like I go to the grocery store, I go to McDonald's, that's a really good one. I go to like Costco or something, right? And these places, you'll see the price difference, right? If you, I keep a lot of my receipts and stuff, so I can tell the difference of how much I spent. And I usually get the same amount of groceries, so I typically know it, and it's gone up by like 15-20%, really, right? That's like really high for just a span of 1 year. So this is kind of crazy. Like especially where I live, I start to see a lot of people drive less. Like a lot of folks are selling their car because they can't afford the insurance and stuff. It's really scary. So there's some weird indicators on my end that I look for, but this kind of stuff, guys, I mean if it affects a lot of the lower class, really, to be honest, and it kind of also affects the middle class a little bit more so. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds really here, but I do want to address this because there's a lot of misconception as to why it may or may not affect just the lower and middle class. But like, guys, let's break it down to a very basic level, okay? If you take it down, what is inflation really, right? It's just like the cost of the money that you have in terms of cash reduces. Think about it, like poorer people, right? And I can speak to this, like people that are of the middle class or poor, the problem is like they don't invest, right? And the reason they don't invest, you can't be like, oh, you're stupid, you should invest your money. Sometimes you just can't. You don't have the option to, right? So for example, at the end of each paycheck, you might only have like $100, maybe $200, and there's usually like some philosophy where you have to keep at least like $500 for emergencies or something, right? Like your car could break down or some sort of emergency would come up, and your credit card is used for other things. So you want to make sure that that's not maxed, or else you won't be able to buy food. So you got to understand these situations here. Like the people that are upper middle class and higher, it's a little bit harder for them too, but it's easier to cope because the other assets that they currently have, things like houses, things like stocks, investments, and all these other things, they increase with inflation. Not maybe equally, but they do increase in general. So you have to keep that in mind. Like I do remember when I was younger, it was very tough to save more than like $300-400 after each paycheck for me to even do anything like investing, right? And then you're like, if I put this money away, like what am I really going to be left with? Nothing. And if I have to pull it, God forbid, then you have the penalties and all these other fees that you got to pay. So you got to keep that in mind, guys. So when these guys go to the grocery store and they buy stuff, the same things that they're buying, because of course they're price matching and doing all sorts of stuff to save a little bit of money, everything goes up all of a sudden, right? So if they're saving like $20-30 per thing, they might still be saving $20-30, but the overall bill just goes up because everything else that they buy has gone up. no thanks to inflation. And the big surprise of all of this is, guess what happened to their wages? They didn't go up, right? And this affects this wage thing affects pretty much throughout. This is not class-based. It's more crippling for the poor, for sure, for like the lower and lower middle class. But the thing is, wages don't go up in general. Like, unless you're getting a constant, 2-3% per year, and this past year maybe like 6-7%, you're not really fighting inflation from an income perspective, right? So you got to keep those things in mind. That's exactly why these people struggle with inflation. So there's something in the air here for sure. The indicators are there. It's almost like it just needs something to topple it over, and it's already falling. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take to fall. So that's why a lot of these like crashes coming now, run channels are making money, right? Those guys predict crashes like every 10 seconds, and when they finally get it right, they look like they're geniuses. But what I'm going to do right now, actually, to be honest, is just hold. I'm not going to buy anymore. Luckily, actually, it's serving as a weird hedge, but I have to pay a bunch of taxes. So I have some money put on the sideline, some to actually around like 25 to 30% put aside in case I need to jump back into the market for some kind of major dip. So I'm not going to try to capitalize from, calculating these small dips and stuff. I'm really waiting for something bigger to happen macro-wise. So I think that's it. Omicron does not seem like it's that factor, not just yet, right? We need to find out more. The virulence is starting to show itself a little bit more. Once these doctors get aware of what's happening, I think we'll have a better idea as to how much impact this is going to be. All I know is I'm in talks to renew like contracts and stuff for my business, and they're talking about this new strain and how they might actually work from home for a little bit longer, because I know they were planning to have folks come into the office more or do some kind of like hybrid program. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna hold, man. For now, I don't see anything that's there for me to do some kind of weird hedging plan or anything like that. That's it. I mean, you guys feel free to let me know if you have some sort of plan chalked up. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a wait and see approach. Everyone needs to just stay safe, and let's keep our ears to the ground and see what's happening and take the pulse and sort of take it from there. Outside of that, I wouldn't freak out, guys. Just if you're scared, just hold. There's no harm in just holding, and let's wait it out and see what happens. Well, let me know what you guys think. That's all for me. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.